This video is going to review infusion rate calculations. Infusion rates are determined by the simple formula of total number of milliliters to infuse divided by your time in hours. And if you look at the label there of the two variables in this formula, milliliters over hours, and that's going to equal milliliter per hour infusion rates. Okay, and let's see what that looks like. Here we're being asked to calculate the IV rate in milliliters per hour. And we have 1,800 milliliters of D5W in 24 hours. So looking at our formula, our total number of milliliters to infuse is 1,800 milliliters. And our time in hours is 24 hours. So I go to my calculator and I take 1,800 and I divide that by 24 hours and I get 75. So my answer is 75 milliliters per hour. And you want to make sure you write your answer, your final answer, on the line provided and make sure it is labeled. Trying another one. Calculate the IV rate in mils per hour. We have 1 liter of normal saline in 8 hours. So what is my total number of milliliters to infuse? Well, I know that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. I need to convert that, and I divide it by my time in hours, and that's going to be 8 hours. So I go to my calculator and I take 1,000 and divide that by 8 hours, and I get 125. I go to my line and I write 125 milliliters per hour is my final answer. Okay, let's try another one. This one is 500 milliliters in 6 hours. So my total number of milliliters to infuse is 500 and my total time in hours is 6 hours. So I calculate that out, 500 divided by 6, and that equals 83.333. And I can't set my IV pump at 83.333. So I'm going to have to round this to the nearest whole number. And I look at my number right here, my number to the 10th, because right now I'm rounding to the nearest whole number. So the first 0.3 is the number I'm going to look at. So my IV rate here is going to be 83 milliliters per hour. Okay, we want to round that to a whole number. Moving on, sometimes we have orders written in fractions of an hour. So the formula is time in hours, but what if the problem says give something in 20 minutes? So therefore, we're going to have to calculate a little bit more. And what we do here is 20 minutes. If we look at 20 minutes, here's the formula, number of minutes, and divide that by 60, it's going to give us partial hours. So if I take 20 and divide that by 60, I get 0.33 hours. Okay, so this is 0.33 hours. And we want to keep this number to the 100th. The policy in our math policy in your student handbook states that during calculations, you want to keep your numbers to the nearest 100th. So when you're calculating 20 minutes, you want it to be 0.33, not just 0.3. Okay, you want to have that number to the 100th. So when it comes to 30 minutes, if I divide 30 divided by 60 equals 0.5 hours. Okay, so here I have 0.5. There's no other zero here. It's just 0.5 hours because it's divisible evenly. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with 45 minutes. If I take 45 and divide that by 60, over to my calculator, even though I'm pretty sure I know what it is, that's going to be 0.75 hours. Okay, I'm going to write that in here, 0.75 hours. Okay, and that's how that's going to look, but let's see how that looks in a math problem. Okay, so now we have 250 milliliters in 30 minutes. So my total number of milliliters to infuse is 250 milliliters, but now my time in hours I have to calculate. So if I take that 30 minutes divided by 60 minutes in an hour, I'm going to get 0.5 hours. So now that time in hours is going to be 0.5 hours. And I go to my calculator and I take 250 and I divide that by 0.5 and I get 500. 500 what? 500 milliliters per hour. Okay, going to the next one. I want to find out my IV rate in milliliters per hour, and I have 100 milliliters in 45 minutes. So my total number of milliliters to infuse is 100 milliliters. Okay, my time in hours, 45 minutes, that's a partial hour. So I do 45 minutes divided by 60 minutes, and I go to my calculator. 45 divided by 60 equals 0.75 hours. Okay, so that's going to be my time in hours, 0.75 hours. And I divide 100 divided by 0.75 and I get 133.33, repeating. And again, I want whole numbers with my standard IV infusion rates. So because I want a whole number, I'm going to look at the first number after the whole number, and that's my 0.3. Because that is 4 or less, I'm not going to go up. So my final answer is going to be 133 milliliters per hour. Final answer. Okay, here's another one. Calculate my IV rate in milliliters per hour. Now I have 0.75 liters in 90 minutes. Okay, first thing I need to do is I need to put those liters into milliliters. And if I have 0.75 liters, I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 times. That's going to equal 750 milliliters. So I know the top of my formula is going to be 750 milliliters. And now I have 90 minutes, okay, and I've got to figure that out. And I can do 90 minutes divided by 60 minutes, and I go to my calculator. 90 divided by 60 equals 1.5 hours, okay? So I'm going to do 750 milliliters divided by 1.5 hours, go back to my calculator, divided by 1.5, and that's going to equal 500. I go to my line here for my answer. 500 milliliters per hour is my final answer. Okay, now there's also something called a clock method that can make our calculations a little faster and easier, and you will find that if you do this enough, you can do it in your head once you get good at it and you can trust it. Okay, then let me show you the clock method. So you imagine a clock right here, right? You can imagine a little clock and you can draw it out while you're learning it. And we're going to look at this first problem to learn this together, okay? It's 250 milliliters in 30 minutes. So now you could do 30 divided by 60 like we've been doing earlier, but this is an even easier method. So 30 minutes, how many 30 minutes are in an hour? We have 60 minutes in an hour, so there's two 30s. We have 30 minutes here and we have 30 minutes here, right? So if I wanted to infuse 250 milliliters in 30 minutes, I would imagine 250 here, 250 here. So that's a whole hour of time, even though I'm only doing 30 minutes. So in this case, I would add 250 plus 250, and that would be 500 milliliters per hour, adding up. So calculating 250 milliliters in 30 minutes is 500 milliliters per hour using this clock method. Okay, let's try that again. And I want to point out that clock methods, mostly you're going to see these numbers because they're equally divisible by a clock, right? We can do a clock, we can do 15 minutes would be 4. If we were going to do 20 minutes, that would be 3. And 30 minutes would be 2. And that's a peace sign, which is nice. Make us happy when we have peace, okay? But that's how they're going to look. And so this question is asking for 100 milliliters over 20 minutes. So I'm going to draw my little clock out. How many 20 minutes are there in 1 hour? And there's 3, 20, 40, 60. So I'm going to divide my clock into my little peace sign here. 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, okay? And how much do I want to give in 20 minutes? I want to give 100. So 100, 100, 100. And again, we're not giving 300 milliliters. We're only giving one of these 20-minute sections, but we want to calculate the rate per hour because that's how we set the pump. So I do 100 plus 100 plus 100. That, of course, is going to answer 300. My rate is 300 milliliters per hour. Okay, we have one more. Half a liter in 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. Now my clock has to be broken up into 4 segments because there are 4 15 minutes in 1 hour. How much do I want to give in 15 minutes? I want to give 0.5 liters, and I want to make sure I go into milliliters. So I multiply this by 1,000. I go 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So that equals 500 milliliters. So each 15 minutes is going to get a 500, each one. And then to calculate my milliliters per hour, I'm going to do 500. Instead of adding, I can also multiply by 4. Go to my calculator if I don't trust my brain, and that's going to equal 2,000. That's a really fast rate. We're giving somebody volume pretty fast here. So my rate is going to be 2,000 milliliters per hour as my final answer. Okay, and let's do a couple practice problems here. So now we have determined the flow rate via infusion pump, and we have 500 milliliters of intralipids to infuse over 6 hours. Remember, my formula is milliliters divided by total hours. So I'm going to do 500 milliliters divided by 6 hours. Go to my calculator, 500 divided by 6. That's going to equal 83.33. And again, I want a whole number, so I'm going to look at this first number after the whole number, and because it's 4 or less, I'm not going to go up. I'm going to keep my rate at 83 milliliters per hour. That's my final answer. Okay, another one, determine the flow rate by infusion pump. And now I want to be very careful here because many students want to do something with this 600 milligrams of clindamycin. Okay, there is a medication in this fluid, and when we're determining a flow rate, we don't care how much medication is in there. We just don't care. So that's something we might need to calculate when we're calculating medication doses. But right now we're looking at infusion rates. So I don't care about my clindamycin for this particular question. What I do care about is I have 100 milliliters over 90 minutes. So I'm going to look at my formula. My total volume is 100 milliliters that I want to infuse. And how time in hours? Okay, 90 minutes is not a clean hour. So I need to do 90 minutes divided by 60 minutes in 1 hour. It's going to equal 1.5 hours. So I'm going to take my 100 milliliters and divide that by 1.5 hours. 100 divided by 1.5 is going to equal 66.67. So my answer here is 66.666 repeating, but when I write it down, I'm going to round it to the nearest hundredth, and then I'm going to round it to the nearest whole number once I have this written down, because I want to look one number past my whole number. So in this case, 6 is greater than 5, so I'm going to round this up to 67 milliliters per hour. Okay, I wanted to write this down with the hundredth because when I'm rounding to a whole number, I need to look at this number here. And in order just to write this number down, I want to make sure that the 6 didn't round up to 7. And in this case, it wouldn't have mattered if it was a 6 or a 7, but that's why I wrote this number down to the hundredth from what came on my calculator. Okay, you want to keep your calculations to the hundredth until you're going to your final answer. Next problem. Okay, this is our last problem. Okay, so determine the flow rate. We have ampicillin 1.5 grams in 100 milliliters going over 45 minutes. And again, don't be confused by my medication in my volume. What I really care about is the volume and how fast I want to infuse it. And in this case, my total volume is 100 milliliters. And how fast do I want to give it? My time in hours. I'm going to do 45 and divide that by 60. 45 divided by 60 on my calculator equals 0.75 hours. So I'm going to write 0.75 on the bottom of my equation, and then I go to my calculator and I do 100 divided by 0.75, and that's going to equal 133.33. Okay, 133.33. And now I'm ready to round to my final answer. So I'm going to look at the number to the 10th, which is 0.3, and 3 is 4 or less. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to round it to 133 milliliters per hour. Okay, and that's it for all we have for this particular topic. If you have questions or you're confused, please feel free to send me a message. I hope you enjoyed this video and take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.